报应啊，毒鸡它那报应来了。
Retribution, the retribution of toxic chicken soup for the soul quotes has arrived. At Xi'an's most recent matchmaking fair, there were only a few guys on site, and it was all single women who showed up. Why aren't these single guys coming? Do they really not want to marry a wife anymore? A lot of girls completely broke down. Some netizens joked that this is like dishes in a restaurant. Why can't they be sold? Either they look bad, they don't taste good, they're too old and hard to chew, or someone has already picked at them. The key point is that the dish is obviously nothing special, yet it's priced insanely high. Other netizens said bluntly, men are under so much pressure now, working themselves to the bone just to make money. Men with no money go there and it's still pointless, they have no chance at all. And men with money, why would they be willing to eat those unwanted leftovers? Do you think that makes sense?
一个优秀的女人多老她都能
优秀，真的，每个人都说优秀，每个人都说自己优秀的，真的。优秀是什么？跑到这相亲市场来相亲了，你还谈你优秀？相亲市场最牛逼的是来上市，牛泡泡走了，男人到这里来把牛带走了，女人到这里来上天把帅哥带走了。
我问你，
来一个上车吃，都130次啊，都没人约你，你叫优秀？
恋市场现在真的是越来越奇葩了。
The dating and marriage market is really getting more and more bizarre. Did you all see that matchmaking event in Xi'an a while ago? Thousands of girls showed up on site, but there were almost no men participating. It's not just Xi'an. In hot cities like Beijing and Shenzhen it's even more exaggerated. The male-to-female ratio in matchmaking directly shot up to 150, meaning 50 girls competing for one guy. What's even more interesting is that dating platforms charge women high membership fees, but for men it's either cheap or simply free. Why has it turned into this kind of situation? In the end, men just can't handle it anymore. Either they can't bear the economic pressure after marriage, or they simply don't want to bear it, so they proactively exit the dating and marriage market. Some women curse men nowadays for having no sense of responsibility, saying they lie flat at a young age, but I really want to ask on their behalf, if they don't lie flat, what else can they do? Let me tell you a real case. In Shanghai, a girl went on a blind date and immediately demanded that the man must have a fully paid apartment in Jing'an district. What does Jing'an district mean? The core of Shanghai's core. Housing prices are at least 80,000 yuan per square meter, and in prime locations it directly breaks 100,000 yuan. If a man truly has 10 million yuan, assuming he can live another 50 years without getting married, then just from what he spends each year, plus investment returns, he can have 300,000 yuan, which is like 20,000 yuan of fun money every month to spend however he wants. So if it were you, with that kind of strength, would you choose to live freely and enjoy life, or find someone to split your family assets and drain your emotions every day? Even if you retreat to second and third-tier cities, the cost of marriage still won't be low. Buying a home costs more than 1 million yuan, the bride price is 200,000 to 300,000 yuan, and at least 150,000 yuan for a car as basic transportation, adding up to a full 2 million yuan. But the average monthly salary in China's urban private sector is only about 5,000 to 6,000 yuan. If a guy doesn't have parents to help, and he saves money purely to marry a wife without eating or drinking, he has to grind until age 35 to save up that amount, not to mention raising a child. There's data saying that raising a child to age 17 costs an average of 540,000 yuan, but that's 10 times the per capita income. Even if a family earns 10,000 to 20,000 yuan a month, they still live extremely frugally and can't loosen their grip at all. And then capital is fanning the flames behind the scenes. Aside from Qingming Festival, any holiday can be turned into a shopping festival. Every month merchants have an excuse to package it as Valentine's Day. Even the first cup of milk tea in autumn and a grilled sausage in winter get hyped up into a sense of ritual. On holidays, men giving women gifts has become taken for granted, but how many people have ever asked what boys want? Women receive a lipstick worth a few hundred yuan and feel it's nothing special. Men, on the other hand, can be happy all day just from receiving a single chocolate. In dating and marriage, the biggest spending burden is all pushed onto men, and that's an obvious fact. What's even more outrageous is that the cost of dating and marriage is still skyrocketing. From 2010 to 2025, an engagement diamond ring rose from 12,000 yuan to 53,000 yuan, and in first-tier cities, women's income expectations for men went from a 2015 monthly salary of 12,000 yuan to a 2025 monthly salary of 38,000 yuan. By that standard, only income levels in Western Europe are worthy of marriage. And even if men grit their teeth and scrape together the money, they still have to guard against all kinds of traps. In high bride price regions, the divorce rate is even higher than in first-tier cities. Cases where men end up losing both money and people are everywhere. So you see, when the economic cost of marriage far exceeds what an individual can bear, when spending money can't buy true love but instead buys risk, not getting married naturally becomes the most rational choice for men. If you truly want to change this situation, there's only one path. Loosen the shackles on men, break the brainwashing that capital and consumerism impose on women, let love return to what it originally was, and don't let money destroy what should have been a pure bond.
32岁了，不想再挑了，想找一个踏踏实实的男生，1.75米以上吧，高高瘦瘦的那种就行。最好是会做家务，会做饭，因为我比较瘦嘛。年薪的话就40万以上就行。没别的了。
想许愿去庙里，你是出来相亲的。
If you want to make a wish, go to a temple. You are here to go on a blind date. The whole time you never mention what you have. You can't do anything well, and you never leave anything uneaten. You've been matchmaking for 32 years and you still haven't finished picking. Girl, have you ever thought the other way around? You were the one left behind after others picked. Men finished picking, and after picking for 32 years they left you, and you still don't know what's going on? If a man wants you at all, that's already not bad. Look at those conditions. Can cook, annual salary 400,000 yuan. People like that do exist, but what are their conditions? Under 30 years old. Can you meet that? Are you really thinking you're above everyone else? Driving a crappy car, dressing a bit fashionably, and you really take yourself that seriously.
中国女性的择偶标准呢，总结就一句话，那就是高富帅。
Chinese women's mate selection standards can be summed up in one sentence: tall, rich, and handsome. I advise some girls to quickly abandon the fantasy. At 18 you want a partner who is tall and handsome. At 28, on top of being tall and handsome, he also has to be rich. By 38, the requirement becomes, he must be rich. The reasons also sound very reasonable. If he's not over 1.8 meters tall, that's a disability. If he's not handsome, you can't eat. If he has no house, no car, no money, what are you going to live on? But girl, why do you deserve that? Some women may have been deceived by big data. They're ordinary, yet they fantasize that either a domineering CEO or a warm appa is waiting for them. What do you think a tall, rich, and handsome man wants from you? That you don't wash your hair? That you don't wear makeup? Let me put it this way. In all of China, the number of tall, rich, and handsome men who meet your has a car, has a house, has money standard is at most 1 million. And how many marriage-age single women are there in China right now? About 110 million. This ratio is simply impossible to compare. If you don't believe it, go take a look at matchmaking corners in city parks. In Chengdu's matchmaking corner, the male-to-female ratio is 143, Hangzhou is 140, Shanghai is 130. It's like a talent show more than a talent show, like selecting concubines more than selecting concubines. Some matchmaking corners don't even accept women's matchmaking profiles anymore. Data from 2020 shows that in rural areas, the sex ratio in the 20 to 24 and 25 to 29 age groups reached 123 to 90 and 120 to 87. What does that mean? It means every 100 women correspond to 120 men, while the normal range is 96 to 105. You might say the ratio is only a few dozen above the normal range, but our base population is huge. So you will see that we keep shouting about resisting high bride prices, yet we discover that in truly difficult rural regions, the bride price is unbelievably high. Why is that? Because villages have houses and land. Housing is not the main cost at all. The bride price is basically like you spend 300,000 to 500,000 yuan to get a wife. In a situation of gender imbalance, spending 300,000 to 500,000 yuan in exchange for not being a lifelong bachelor and having a happy life, how is that not worth it? You say there are 30 million more men than women nationwide, yet older unmarried women in cities are like the crowd flow at Spring Festival train stations, packed so tightly you can't see the end. Why? On the one hand, many rural women have moved out to big cities, creating a situation where many cities have a relatively higher proportion of women than rural areas. On the other hand, under declarations on social media and the internet, many women have formed a mistaken understanding of themselves, always thinking they can find a partner who is outstanding in every way and perfectly satisfies them. And on the other hand, in cities, although the bride price amount isn't that big, housing and cars are expensive, and housing and cars are prerequisites for marriage. How many people can afford a big city down payment on their own without relying on family? So rural bachelors stay silent in the fields, while urban men in the matchmaking market get snapped up long ago. Not to mention that good men who meet the tall rich handsome conditions basically never flow into the market. People have their own class circles and don't easily move downward. Why do you think you can become that lucky exception? If you have that kind of luck, wouldn't buying lottery tickets be better? You should know that data from a matchmaking agency in Shanghai shows that among women over 35, the proportion requiring the man to be in the system and have a house reached 76%, but men who meet the conditions are less than 1%. Yes, many women now shout about freedom, rights, and independence, saying they don't want to get married. But there are definitely women who still want to get married, so what should they do? The new marriage law has already told you, houses and cars that aren't yours are not yours. Even if your name is written on them, it's still useless. You might as well lower the material requirements. Rich people might go bankrupt, handsome people might gain weight, but a man with good character won't suddenly become a bad person. So valuing a man's character is the only way you can be a bit more reliable. Nothing is better than finding a man with good character who will live a steady life with you. And if you meet such a man, you must cherish him, because once a woman is with a normal man, it is impossible for him to allow that man to flow back into the dating and marriage market again. And don't even mention men with good character, a sense of responsibility, who care about the family, treat you well, and are willing to spend money on you. Same old line, know yourself. If you run into a returned overseas elite or an innocent big boy in the matchmaking market, it's probably a scammer. What do you all think?
成都这下子真的要变成女儿国了。
Chengdu is really going to become a kingdom of women. Some websites have statistics. Chengdu's matchmaking market ratio has completely exploded to 143. If this trend continues, men will basically become panda-level protected animals, so when you go out, you must protect yourself. Someone told me you are just creating anxiety. How could that be possible? Don't you doubt it. That 143 data was still from last year. This year will only be more exaggerated. Do you know? People born in the 2000s are already 25 years old now. Even they have officially stepped into marriage age, and now they are starting to rush into the matchmaking market. They are young, pretty, and educated, and some don't even talk about bride price. How can you older girls keep up? So I'm telling you, older girls, hurry up. While those born in the 2000s are still observing, and while the market still has a little stock, move fast and grab it. Otherwise, you'll only be single for life.
Why are there so many girls in the matchmaking market now? Men are unwilling to go. Because men have self-awareness. Men know they have no house and no car, and their income is not enough, so they don't go to the matchmaking market. If they can't handle women in real life, then they don't need to go to the matchmaking market. And what about women? They're the group of girls who can't find good men in real life, so they go to the matchmaking market to try their luck. In the past, when the internet wasn't developed, many brothers were simple-minded. They went to the matchmaking market thinking they could find a good one. Look at what kinds of women are in the matchmaking market now, right? They all demand tall, rich, and handsome, 8-pack abs, domineering CEOs. So these women who can't find good men in real life go to the matchmaking market to try their luck. Before, you might run into that kind of silly, sweet, domineering CEO, but now the probability of that is very, very small. Now, there are fewer and fewer rich people who are also foolish and also willing to spend money on women. And since the internet is so developed now, everyone has formed a trend, so this matchmaking market really can be shut down. It's useless. 50:1, 50 girls to 1 guy. This is common. In the future, men will be even less willing to go. So if these girls still have unrealistic high demands for a partner and keep being picky, then I guess in the end, they will only be able to exchange single life experience with each other in a nursing home.